Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Bold and the Beautiful script titled Great Grandmothers Unite. B&B spoilers tease Lee Finnegan and Sheila Carter rally for Luna on Monday, unfolds as one of the most unexpected, character-driven, and emotionally intricate turns in recent soap history, bringing together two women whose past is soaked in blood, betrayal, and moral conflict, Lee Finnegan and Sheila Carter, now inexplicably bonded by the tragic, complicated fate of Luna Nozawa. The episode opens in the dimly lit visiting room of Los Angeles County Women's Correctional Facility, where Luna, pregnant, disheveled, and visibly traumatized, sits in stunned silence, the weight of her crimes and her unborn child pressing down like chains around her heart. Outside those walls, two mothers, one biological, one spiritual, who share a grandson in John Finn Finnegan, are about to form an uneasy alliance that could reshape the course of the Forrester Spencer Finnegan Nozawa family saga forever. The camera pans across Sheila Carter's face as she stands before Lee Finnegan at Il Giardino, the very restaurant where both have witnessed love, loss, and near-death encounters. Their eyes lock, two predators assessing each other's wounds, their mutual hatred tempered only by an even deeper concern, Luna. The dialogue begins not with venom, but with restraint. Lee, crisp in her hospital whites, stands rigid and controlled, yet there's a glint of fatigue in her eyes. Sheila, with her signature smirk softened into something more human, speaks first. "She's pregnant, Lee. My granddaughter. And she's scared out of her mind." The words hang in the air, echoing across decades of resentment. Lee's sharp intake of breath betrays her composure, and for a moment, her icy professionalism falters. "Don't call her that," Lee hisses, but there's no fire in it, just exhaustion. She knows that, biologically or not, Sheila has a point. The baby growing inside Luna is a Finnegan. From there, the episode dives deep into an emotional, almost psychological duel between two matriarchs who represent opposite ends of morality. Sheila, the redeemed sinner desperately trying to prove she's changed, and Lee, the woman of science and structure who's lost too much to ever fully trust again. Yet both share a singular, maternal instinct, to protect Luna and the unborn child that now ties their bloodlines together. Sheila recounts her own time behind bars, her own pregnancies shadowed by fear and judgment, and her empathy for Luna's plight feels unsettlingly genuine. "When the world locks you up, Lee," Sheila murmurs, eyes glistening, "they don't just take your freedom, they take your hope. Luna's not the monster everyone says she is. She's a lost girl who made mistakes." Lee, ever the pragmatist, snaps back, "She killed people, Sheila. She destroyed lives." But then her voice wavers. "And now she's creating one." That line alone becomes the emotional centerpiece of the episode, a rare acknowledgement from Lee that even in tragedy, life persists. As the conversation unfolds, viewers are treated to intercut flashbacks, Luna's trembling hands during her arrest, Finn's silent tears as he watched his half-sister taken away, and Steffi's conflicted expression as she tried to comfort her husband while still fearing for her family's safety. The direction of these flashbacks is deliberate, each memory adds complexity to the present moment, blurring the lines between villain and victim. Sheila recalls the countless times she was branded irredeemable, whispering almost to herself, "They said I couldn't change, that I was poison." Maybe that's what they're saying about her now. Lee, for all her rigidity, hears something in Sheila's tone that hits home. The scene subtly mirrors Lee's own estrangement from Finn after her secret-keeping and moral compromises. It's not lost on her that she, too, has lived in a glass house while throwing stones. The script turns a corner when Sheila slides a manila envelope across the table, a prenatal medical report she obtained through her questionable connections. "You're still a doctor, aren't you?" she teases softly. "Maybe you should take a look." Her blood pressure's high, stress levels through the roof. She needs care, not condemnation. Lee hesitates, her hands trembling ever so slightly as she opens the file. For the first time, her eyes soften. The report is real, Luna's pregnancy is high risk, her health deteriorating from stress and malnutrition. The sight of Luna's name beside phrases like complications and threatened miscarriage shatters Lee's stoicism. Sheila watches, quiet and uncharacteristically patient, as Lee finally exhales, the facade breaking. "She's just a child," Lee whispers, echoing the same line she once used to describe Finn when he was in pain. And that moment becomes the emotional turning point, not just for Lee, but for both women. By mid-episode, the story pivots from animosity to reluctant strategy. Sheila suggests they work together, an absurd notion on the surface, yet hauntingly logical in context. "You've got the medical expertise," she says. "I've got the experience surviving hell. Between the two of us, maybe we can get her through this." Lee initially laughs at the idea, "You and me? Allies? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." But as the episode continues, her body language shifts. The scene crescendos in silence as Lee looks down at the ultrasound photo Sheila slides across the table. "That's your great-grandchild," Sheila whispers. "And mine." The camera lingers on Lee's face, haunted, conflicted, and uncertain, for a long, breathtaking beat. Then, finally, she whispers, "Then we do this for her. For Luna. Not for you." Sheila smiles faintly, the old fire flickering behind her eyes. "Whatever gets us there, document." Meanwhile, in the prison infirmary, Luna clutches her abdomen as she listens to the faint heartbeat of her unborn child through a cheap fetal Doppler. She's haunted by memories of the lives she took, the people she hurt, and yet, she feels the first stirrings of hope. The intercut scenes show both Sheila and Lee preparing for battle in their own ways, Lee drafting medical appeals to have Luna transferred to a specialized facility, and Sheila meeting with Deacon Sharp, trying to pull strings through her underworld contacts. When the episode brings the two women together again in the final act, it's not as enemies but as partners in a mission. The tension remains, the distrust palpable, but there's also a strange, fierce energy between them, a shared determination that transcends their personal hatred. As the closing monologue plays, Sheila's voice narrates over a montage of Luna in her cell, Finn at the hospital staring at Luna's medical file, and Lee standing at the window of her office, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline. "They think monsters like us don't care," Sheila says. "But maybe that's what makes us human, the ones who've walked through fire know how to pull someone else out of it." The final shot zooms in on Lee's reflection as she whispers almost imperceptibly, "For Luna." The screen fades to black, the credits rolling to an instrumental version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, encapsulating the episode's theme of redemption through shared compassion. In the grand tapestry of the bold and the beautiful, this episode doesn't just shock, it transforms. For decades, Sheila Carter has been the embodiment of chaos, while Lee Finnegan represented precision and control. Their convergence over Luna Nozawa's fate signals a rare and poetic moment of unity, two great-grandmothers, once enemies, now bound by the fragile promise of new life. It's an emotional masterstroke by head writer Brad Bell, setting the stage for a storyline that could see Lee and Sheila navigating moral gray zones together, petitioning for Luna's medical release, clashing with the prison board, and possibly facing resistance from Steffi, Finn, and the rest of the Forresters, who would see any alliance with Sheila as a betrayal. Yet for these two women, the baby represents something more profound, a chance to correct the past, to heal generational wounds, and to prove that redemption is not just a storyline, it's a legacy. In the end, The Bold and the Beautiful reminds its audience why it remains one of America's most enduring dramas, because even amid sin, suffering, and scandal, it finds beauty in the unlikeliest of reconciliations, this time, through the tears and tentative truce of two formidable great-grandmothers united by love, loss, and the hope of a second chance. The Bold and the Beautiful's tapestry of pain, redemption, and reluctant family ties as the storyline between Lee Finnegan and Sheila Carter takes on new dimensions that ripple across Los Angeles. After their uneasy truce at Il Giardino, Lee returns to the hospital with Luna's medical file still trembling in her hands. The normally impenetrable chief of surgery can't shake the image of Luna's ultrasound. Alone in her office, she replays every choice that led them here, her own refusal to acknowledge Luna when the girl first entered Finn's orbit, her hostility toward Poppy, and her desperate need to keep her family's reputation clean. Now, the woman who prided herself on cutting toxic influences out of her life is realizing she might have been one herself. Lee's dialogue in this sequence is understated yet powerful. She whispers to herself, "What have I done?" as tears fall onto Luna's chart, her voice cracking for the first time since she declared Luna a danger to society. The lighting dims as the camera focuses on the photo of Finn and Steffi on her desk, hinting that Lee fears losing her son's trust if she takes Sheila's side. But even Lee knows that ignoring Luna's condition isn't an option. The child she carries is a Finnegan, and that makes this personal. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to Sheila at the back of Deacon's restaurant, nervously twisting her bracelet as she debates whether to call Finn. She knows he'll hang up or worse, report her for meddling, but her heart can't ignore the maternal pull that ties her to Luna. Deacon enters the frame, wiping his hands with a towel, his brow furrowed. Their exchange drips with subtext. "You're playing with fire again, Sheila," he warns. "You start meddling in that girl's case, you'll burn everything down." Sheila's response is pure vulnerability cloaked in defiance. "I know what it's like to be written off as hopeless, Deacon. Maybe if someone had fought for me, I wouldn't have become me." This line becomes one of the episode's emotional anchors, a raw admission that humanizes the soap's most infamous villain. Deacon softens, placing a hand on hers. "Just don't lose yourself again trying to save someone else," he murmurs, foreshadowing that Sheila's empathy could once again become her undoing. From here, the episode transitions into a courtroom subplot as Luna's public defender petitions for medical evaluation. The judge, portrayed with quiet authority, hesitates to release Luna even temporarily. The prosecutor reminds everyone that Luna is a convicted murderer, her unstable mental state a threat to others. Just as the judge appears ready to deny the motion, the courtroom doors open. Lee strides in, lab coat and all, carrying Luna's medical file. Gasps ripple through the audience as Sheila, sitting quietly in the back, nods approvingly. Lee takes the stand, explaining in exacting medical detail how the prison environment poses serious risks to both Luna and her unborn child. Her testimony is both clinical and emotional. "She is not the same person who committed those crimes," Lee says softly, "and if this court condemns her to neglect, it condemns an innocent baby as well." The judge, moved yet conflicted, orders a conditional medical review. The camera pans to Sheila, who clasps her hands in silent gratitude. For the first time, these two women have fought the same battle, on opposite sides of the moral divide, yet for the same goal. Later that evening, Lee and Sheila meet once again, this time in the hospital hallway as Luna is transported under guard for observation. The tension is palpable. Lee can barely look at Sheila, but when Sheila murmurs, "You did the right thing," Lee's only response is, "I did the necessary thing." The difference between the two statements defines their entire relationship. Sheila acts from emotion, Lee from duty. Yet both, in their own way, are motivated by love. Finn enters mid-scene, stunned to find his mother and his biological mother standing side by side. His reaction is explosive. "What are you doing together?" he demands, his voice cracking between anger and disbelief. Lee tries to explain, but Finn cuts her off, turning to Sheila, "You don't get to insert yourself into this. Luna needs stability, not chaos." Sheila, fighting back tears, insists, "I'm not trying to take over, Finn. I'm just trying to help." The emotional choreography here is breathtaking, Finn's rage, Lee's guilt, Sheila's restraint, all colliding in one fraught tableau. The next sequence unfolds in Luna's hospital room. She's frail, pale, and distant, yet when she sees Finn, her expression softens. "You came," she whispers. Finn takes her hand, visibly torn. "You're still my sister," he says quietly, "but you've made choices that cost lives." Luna nods, acknowledging her sins, then touches her stomach. "But maybe this life can balance it," she murmurs. Behind the one-way glass, both Sheila and Lee watch, their reflections overlapping in the window, a visual metaphor for their uneasy alliance. Sheila whispers, "She's stronger than we were," while Lee quietly responds, "Or maybe she's just running out of strength." That haunting duality underscores the heart of the episode, the question of whether redemption is a choice or a consequence. As the storyline deepens, Sheila and Lee begin to coordinate behind the scenes, each playing to her strengths. Lee leverages her hospital authority to ensure Luna receives prenatal vitamins, therapy, and privacy. Sheila, meanwhile, manipulates the prison warden through old favors, securing visitation rights and protection for Luna from violent inmates. Their teamwork is tense but effective. One night, they meet in the hospital parking lot under the sodium glow of streetlights, exchanging updates like covert operatives. "You really think this makes us family?" Lee asks icily. Sheila's reply is simple yet profound: "It makes us responsible." The word responsible echoes as the screen cuts to black, marking the halfway point of the episode, a line that encapsulates the theme of accountability that has haunted both women for decades. The third act of the script crescendos when Luna collapses from stress-related complications, forcing an emergency C-section at only 7 months. Lee and Sheila both rush to the operating room, the latter breaking every rule to be by Luna's side. The scene is a visual and emotional storm, alarms blaring, nurses shouting, Sheila screaming, "Save them," as Lee takes command. "I'm the surgeon," Lee yells, tears streaking her face as she orders the team to prep. The birth sequence is shot in near silence save for the sound of Luna's faint breathing and the heart monitors beeping. Finally, after agonizing minutes, a baby's cry pierces the tension. Sheila collapses into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, while Lee delivers the child and hands it to the NICU nurse. Luna, barely conscious, whispers, "Is my baby okay?" and Lee answers softly, "Your baby's a fighter, just like her mother." Sheila touches Luna's hand and says, "And just like her great-grandmother's." The aftermath cements this as one of B&B's most powerful episodes. Luna's baby, a girl, is placed in the NICU, her tiny form wrapped in pink and silver blankets. Finn enters the ward, gazing down at his niece with awe and confusion. When he turns, he finds both of his mothers standing together. For a moment, there's no dialogue, just 3 generations of Finnegans, bound by blood, regret, and fragile hope. Then Finn, voice-breaking, says, "Maybe this is where we start over." Sheila looks at Lee, who nods ever so slightly. It's not forgiveness, but it's not hatred either, it's something in between, a truce carved out of love for the next generation. The episode closes with a quiet montage, Lee watching Luna sleep, Sheila lighting a candle at home beside a framed photo of Finn, and the baby's monitor gently beeping. Over it all, a narrator's voice, Steffi's, from a voicemail she leaves for Finn, says, "Sometimes the past repeats itself until someone's brave enough to change the ending." As the credits roll, the title card reads, "For all the mothers who refused to give up." In one sweeping, emotionally dense hour, The Bold and the Beautiful turns its legacy of feuds into a testament of fragile unity. Sheila Carter and Lee Finnegan, once mortal enemies, have become reluctant allies in the fight for Luna Nozawa's redemption and the survival of her child, a baby who symbolizes not just continuation, but transformation. Their story is far from over, it's merely the beginning of a new chapter in which redemption isn't just spoken, it's lived, one difficult, painful choice at a time. Stubborn, practical, that refuse to let anyone use violence to rewrite someone else's happiness. Meanwhile, Poppy and Sheila's unlikely alliance, a tangle of manipulation and need, was unraveling as Poppy, whose own miscalculations had cost her more than once, watched Sheila become unmoored, too volatile even for their past schemes, and Poppy's conscience, frayed but present, whispered that maybe there was a line she wouldn't cross again, that hurting innocent people for revenge's sake wasn't what she signed up for, even if life at their edges had taught her to take risks. As the web tightened, Luna, whose life had been a study in survival and deception, received a cryptic message that made her palms sweat, a photograph of Hope laughing with Liam, the timestamp visible, and a single typed sentence beneath it, "Enjoy while you can," and Luna, who had been playing low and hiding behind a story she'd crafted for her own reasons, felt a cold dread that this was more than posturing, it was a promise, and promises from people like Sheila were rarely broken without blood. The police, finally nudged into action by multiple reports and the sudden involvement of Forrester Creations' security team, assigned 2 detectives to the case, a weary veteran who'd seen too many domestic storms end badly and a younger, idealistic officer who still believed paperwork could stop madness. And they began putting together Sheila's pattern: motel stays, anonymous calls, the same kind of surveillance that made the city's underbelly feel claustrophobic and small. Under cover of this bureaucratic motion, small, eerie things began to happen. A car keyed outside Taylor's house, a bouquet of wilted flowers left at Hope's cabin with a note that read nothing but a name, Lee's unmarked car found with scratches as if someone had tried to take the wheel from the inside, none of it yet lethal, but every piece was a drumbeat, and in soap operatic logic drumbeats become storms. At night, Liam sat awake, ring heavy on his finger though it felt like a weight and not a token, replaying every moment with Sheila in it, remembering how she'd walked into lives and rearranged hearts the way hurricanes rearrange beaches. No one was immune, and he thought about Dad and about Bill, about the men who'd fought for control in other battles, and he swore he would not let this one be taken from him by fear. Hope, meanwhile, tried to reclaim a portion of normalcy by arranging a small engagement lunch with only their closest friends, a plan that was both defiant and fragile, but as guests filtered in, umbrellas of tension followed, Brooke with a forced brightness, Ridge with an unsteady calm, Steffi carrying the armor of a woman who'd been betrayed too often but who would die trying to protect a family that still needed her, and Thomas hovering on the edge, eyes scanning for the drama that had made him famous. During the lunch Lee noticed a man in the parking lot, nondescript, with a baseball cap pulled low, photographing the scene from his car, and she alerted security with the kind of quiet hysteria that comes from someone who has seen too much to be surprised, and when security closed and the man sped away, a silent acknowledgement that this was escalating from threats to stalking. The cameras at Forrester Creations, usually full of creative gossip and runway rehearsals, captured a shadowy figure lurking near the loading docks at 3 in the morning. A clip that would later be slowed and enhanced and passed around like a relic, each frame feeding the growing paranoia, and Sheila, alone in a motel room, watched the city breathe from her window and whispered a litany of promises to herself, none of them tender, all of them final. At the same time Deacon, racked with guilt and love and a sort of clumsy heroism, decided to stop being a bystander to his own life. He started attending meetings with Taylor and Lee, pressing his person into the service of protection, calling in old favors, and trying to keep his own feelings in check because if he didn't he might put Taylor directly in harm's path, and the irony was bitter. His love was both his salvation and the potential instrument of someone else's rage. On a separate thread, Sheila made contact with a shadowy acquaintance from her past, a man who owed her and who had skill she admired, and their meeting was brief and clinical, no promises of loyalty, only a list of tasks and a cold exchange of cash that turned vengeance into logistics. And as the surveillance tightened and plans were made and every phone call seemed to carry the potential for catastrophe, the characters spun toward a convergence, a charity gala that Brooke insisted would show the world that fear wouldn't win, Deacon's decision to tell the truth about his feelings in a way that put Taylor directly in the crosshairs, Lee's frantic calls for police presence, and Sheila's quiet decision to strike not with spectacle but with precision, to make one carefully chosen move that would make headlines and hearts tremble. The night of the gala arrived like a held breath, chandeliers glittered, gowns flowed like rivers, and laughter filled the halls, but underneath the glamour the air was taut with fear. Hope and Liam, surrounded by well-wishers, shared a dance that felt pivotal and defiant. Brooke watched with a brittle smile.